Hey, welcome back to Joe Knows Paradise. I'm Joe Fagundes, Berkshire Hathaway here on the Gulf Coast. Thanks so much for joining and viewing the podcast today. We certainly hope that this information is beneficial to you as a consumer, as a client, or even as another agent, because these are my opinions followed by what we're supposed to be doing that's coming down from both our MLS and the National Association of Realtors. We're going to get into that. I mentioned those two organizations because there's a lot of changes that are going to happen August the 17th that not only affect the client, which is what's most important to me, but also affect our agent relationships, our broker-to-broker relationships. And this is an opinion again. It's a ridiculous, dubious change to make business more difficult to transact when we were already doing all of these things anyway. It was just understood. But now there are forms that they have gotten into our MLS and into all the different form banks that we use, whether it be Dot or Dot Forms or Dot Loop or Form Simplicity or Zip or whatever. The statewide MLS or the statewide Association of Realtors has issued new forms for us to use. And the first one I want to talk about is an Exclusive Buyer Brokerage Agreement. I'm going to talk about this from the agent side first, only because to me that's less important, because I want to spend more time about how it affects the consumer. So bear with me while I kind of run through what our checklist is going to be as we introduce these new forms on August the 17th. The first one is an Exclusive Buyer Broker Agreement. Basically, any client that wants to go look at a house starting on August the 17th has to have one of these signed and agreed upon prior to looking at the house. Now, if you go to an open house, it's a different story. Because you're dealing with a listing agent. But if you're going to use a buyer's agent, this form, which is three pages long, clearly shows and defines everything from what the broker's obligations are, what the consumer obligations are. And I hate that we call them consumers because these people are my clients, but that's what they use in the legal terminology on there. It talks about retainers, it talks about compensation fee, it talks about protection period, it identifies the individual property. It's pretty all-inclusive as to what's going to happen. Just this week, I had someone call me and say, hey, I need you to sell my house. And we go over and we get a listing agreement and we sit down and we talk about all the different ways to market the home. And part of it has been, I'm a firm believer that we should have some type of seller concession for a buyer's agent because it gets more eyes to look at it, because not every agent in this business is a listing agent. A lot of them are just buyer's agents. This is really going to affect how they do business. So that's the first form that we have, is an exclusive buyer, I'm going to read it correctly, Exclusive Buyer Brokerage Agreement. So that's the first form you're going to have to sign. And then there's also a showing agreement. This basically goes through, the brokerage, the name of the client, or in this case they call them the consumer, what properties it covers. You're agreeing that if you decide to buy one of these properties that you're going to use this agent or the agents that you sign this form with exclusively. And of course, all of these things can be amended or addendums added to them, but it's basically, instead of having it in one place, now we're going to have it in 6 different places, so that there is no doubt that who's responsible for taking care of the buyer's agent, who's responsible for taking care if the broker to broker is going to pay a commission from the listing broker to the buyer's broker. All of that stuff now is all on a different form instead of in one place posted. So you're no longer going to have agents able to go look at their MLS information and see if someone is offering a seller concession for the buyer's agent. They're literally going to have to pick up the phone, call, email, text, do whatever they do to communicate to see if that's the case. The good news for the consumer, and one of the things I like, is when you negotiate this, if you negotiate at 2% for your buyer's agent, and they show you a property that is paying 2.5%, you're only going to pay 2% because that's what the agent has agreed to. It can't be more. So there's not going, you're going to know up front that they're not going to just take you to see higher paying properties, because they've already agreed with what they're going to do. So it really doesn't matter if somebody's offering a bigger seller concession. That is an advantage to the consumer in my eyes. You know, I've always talked about this with my clients. We show it to them. We tell them why from the listing side. We tell them why from the buyer side. But we certainly don't pay, you know, you get what you get when you're an agent, quite frankly, especially when you're a buyer's agent, because the listing agent has pre-negotiated those numbers. And that's what they're changing. So, you know, these two forms are going to be something you have to fill out and complete before you even go look at the first property. So it's going to take you meeting with someone and having a great breakdown of what you're actually looking for, you know, the areas you're looking for, the items in the house that you want, the style, you know, all those things. It should elevate the amount of knowledge that a buyer's agent goes in with and starts looking at properties for you, so that it narrows down and saves everybody time, because they're not taking you to a house that doesn't fit your need because they have more of the knowledge up front. Most of us do that on the front end. A lot don't. A lot will just answer the phone and say, hey, you want to go look at a house? And they'll 10 minutes later, they're sitting in front of it, opening the door for you. That's not how it should be. This is a professional group of people for the most part. We work very hard, a lot of hours, and you know, we should be taking care of our clients, or consumers as they call them in these forms. So those are the two first forms that I wanted to talk about from the agent side and from the client or consumer side. The other forms are all, and this is more for the agent talk, and then we're going to really talk about how the benefit to the clients. The other forms are between the brokers themselves. So when an agent in Florida, when an agent has a buyer's broker agreement and goes in and talks to and makes an offer on a property that's listed by another agent at another brokerage, they're going to submit their forms. The listing agent is going to have a buyer's agreement if they're offering a seller's concession, and they're going to outline exactly what it is from broker to broker. Because believe it or not, agents aren't the ones getting paid on this, it's the brokers. So broker A is going to pay broker B then pays agent that falls underneath them, whatever their commissions are, minus whatever their costs are. So, you know, there's a whole nother set of forms with that. They all have addendums, they all have amendments. It is going to become more cumbersome. People are going to have to be organized now. It is certainly going to make a difference in the amount of trees that we kill, because there's a lot of forms, and we hope that it is seamless for the client, and we certainly need to be working to make it that way. Obviously, by the tone of everything I've told you, I don't necessarily agree with all the way this is being done, because I think if you're ethical and you're honest, you're doing this anyway. But these forms are being required now as effective August 17th. Now I want to talk about it from the client side and why it's so important for you as a client, you as a prospective buyer, or you as a prospective seller. Make sure that you're using a professional agent that does this full-time, that's vested in you and your property and the community that they're in. And we're going to talk about the seller side first. So if you're dealing with a listing agent, there's a lot of reasons. And look, we all want to maximize what we get. Time is money, and it matters how many people see your house. I had a phone call this morning. I need you to go take a look at this house. You know, unfortunately, it's a divorce situation. They have a limited time to get it on the market. They want to maximize, for both parties, everything they can get out of this house. I am still going to go to these clients and say, look, you know, this change is coming up on August 17th. In order to make this transaction go fast, we need to have as many eyes and as many people seeing it as we can see it. And in order to do that, you know, we need to have be prepared to have some type of seller concession for a buyer's agent. We don't need to be hard and fast at 3%. And only, you know, that side of it. We need to make an incentive for people to really get after your house and set it apart. So I think that's very important from the listing side. You know, you want as many eyes looking at that house. And look, I love representing both the buyer and the seller as a transaction broker in Florida. You know, not everybody's, everybody's happy when they leave, but everybody didn't get what they wanted exactly. So, and no one ever does when you're doing a business transaction, or I've never heard of one. So I think it's important that, we make sure that through the marketing efforts we do, whether, from internet to website, to social media, to, sponsored ads, to emails, to newsletters, all those types of things that we're doing to market your property anyway, that we bring in a whole, in our area, 5,500 people that have an opportunity to take a look at your house. So, those things are going to change some. I think we're going to end up right where we are. It's just going to take some transition because it's a new policy. From the client side, from the buyer side, this is going to be different. If you're buying a house, you've never had to sign a form until you signed your offer. There are going to be numerous ways to incorporate what we're talking about today into the contract itself. You're going to be able to ask for seller concessions so that you're not having to pay that agent. But just know at the end, if a seller is firm and hard and you have a buyer's agent agreement, the expectation is if it's for 2%, that 2% is going to be something that you're going to be responsible for. If you have a good agent, they're going to negotiate that stuff out. They're going to make it happen for you. And, sure, some people can dig their heels in. I can't think of a single person I know that's going to sue their client. So I'm not telling you that it's okay not to do what you sign up to do, but I am telling you that it's going to make it difficult. It's going to make it hard for relationships, especially. It's going to matter that you're using somebody that does this all the time, is a professional in the business, and not just does this part-time. It's going to be a significant difference. So from a consumer side, the client side as a buyer agent, your vetting of who you're using matters more than ever now. And, if you're willing to use Aunt Jane's, daughter who's been in the business for 6 months, or son that's been in the business for 6 months, and let them help you with the biggest investment you're ever going to make, and you're okay with that, then, more power to you, and they may be the best thing that ever happened. But if you're looking at investment properties, if you're, this is the biggest investment you'll ever make. You don't go, you pay a lawyer, you go see a doctor. There are professional real estate agents that do as well a job as anything you'll ever see, and there's about 375 in the local area that are exceptional. So your vetting of who you're using is going to matter.